This explainer is provided by Konselt Safety and Engineering.
Today, we're jumping straight into a deeply sobering but absolutely crucial case study in industrial safety. We're going to break down how a few seemingly minor administrative flaws and communication breakdowns literally caused the deadliest offshore oil disaster in history, the tragedy of Piper Alpha. Let's just get right to the heavy reality of this. 167. On the night of July 6, 1988, 167 men tragically lost their lives aboard that platform out in the North Sea. It's just a staggering loss. And to truly honor those men, we really need to understand exactly what went wrong.
You know, when you hear about a fire of this unimaginable scale, with a massive platform completely engulfed in black smoke, you might assume it was some sudden, completely unavoidable mechanical failure. But it wasn't. This disaster was actually a catastrophic domino effect caused by mismanaged changes, normalized deviance, and severely isolated information. Section 1. The first domino. A missing valve. Let's see how this all builds, starting with a totally routine, seemingly harmless maintenance task on the production deck earlier that very same day.
The entire root of this disaster comes down to a fundamental breakdown in management of change, or MOC. Now, MOC is just that systematic approach meant to ensure that whenever you change equipment or working conditions, you aren't compromising the overall safety of the system. But on Piper Alpha, their system for tracking modifications completely fell apart.
So, here's exactly what went down during the day shift. The crew started maintenance on a backup condensate pump. They called it Pump A. First, they removed a pressure safety valve, PSV 504. But since they couldn't finish the job before their shift ended, they temporarily sealed that open pipe with a flat metal disc called a blind flange. The kicker, they only fitted it finger tight. It wasn't leak-proof and no one ever inspected it. Then, they just left Pump A shut down so they could pick it back up the next day.
Section 2. A fatal shift handover. So what happened, or really what critical information was completely lost, when the day shift handed things over to the incoming night shift at 1800 hours?
This is where the deadly communication gap opens up, and the contrast is just stark. The outgoing day shift knew Pump A was out of service and that its safety valve was sitting somewhere else. But the incoming night shift? They had absolutely no clue the valve was missing. As far as they were concerned, Pump A was fully available as a backup if things went sideways.
So how does a detail that huge just slip through the cracks? Well, it was a massive breakdown of the rig's permit-to-work system. They actually issued two entirely separate permits, one for the condensate pump and another completely separate one for its safety valve. And because those two components were in technically different physical locations on the rig, the paperwork was filed in totally different places. There was zero cross-referencing. If you looked at the pump's permit, there was absolutely nothing telling you the safety valve was gone. Section 3. The chain reaction. It's honestly devastating to look back and see how quickly this mismatched paperwork turned into an unstoppable chain reaction later that night.
Let's track the timeline here. At 21:45, a primary condensate pump trips. The operators try to restart it, but no luck. Now, to avoid a super costly production shutdown, they desperately need a backup. So, they check the paperwork for Pump A, see no active permits restricting it, and blindly turn it on. By 21:55, gas alarms are screaming. They were basically pushing highly pressurized, flammable liquid gas right up against that unsealed finger-tight flange. At 22 o'clock, the first explosion hits. And then, just 20 minutes later, the intense heat ruptures a high-pressure gas riser connected to another platform, triggering a second, even more massive blast.
Literally, within 15 minutes of flipping the switch on that backup pump, nearly 45 kilograms of leaking condensate bound to spark. The result was a horrifying glowing fireball erupting in the dead of night. That initial blast immediately knocked out the rig's control center, wiping out the emergency alarms and leaving the crew essentially leaderless in the middle of total chaos.
And the nightmare didn't stop there, because a whole host of compounding safety flaws just kept making it worse. Take the automatic fire drenching system. It had been manually switched off. Why? Because it was standard practice to turn it off to protect divers in the water from being sucked into the intake pumps. So, no automatic water released. The diesel fire pumps, they required a manual start, but the raging fire completely blocked access to them. And the platform firewalls were only built for fire, not blast resistance, so they ruptured instantly, letting the inferno spread rapidly across the modules.
Section 4. Lessons in managing change. We have to look at the tragic ashes of Piper Alpha and actually extract these vital lessons for the modern industry. Because this wasn't just a hardware issue.
It was a profound organizational failure.
After the disaster, Lord Cullen led a massive public inquiry, and his findings are chilling. He pointed out that an underlying explanation was the culture within the plant, which literally condoned the ignoring of alarms and an absence of a questioning attitude. The platform had normalized bypassing safety procedures. Minor incidents were swept under the rug, safety equipment was routinely disabled, and the workforce had basically stopped questioning the safety of what they were doing every single day.
So, think about your own operations right now. As you look at the communication silos in your workplace, you've got to ask yourself, is your organization genuinely tracking every shift change and system modification? Is your management of change actually foolproof, or are you just one missing piece of paperwork away from disaster?
Thanks for tuning in to this explainer brought to you by Konselt Safety and Engineering. We really hope this deep dive serves as a powerful reminder to stay safe, communicate clearly, and remember that rigorous management of change isn't just about checking boxes, it literally saves lives. Copyright 2026, Konselt Safety and Engineering.